Hello and welcome to another episode of Digging Documents. My name's Tommy Hawkins and I'm about to talk you through the most exciting world of drainage. I know you're probably thinking it's pretty boring, but actually there's some pretty cool stuff we can find out from the environmental resource permits. So here's the one for Universal, for Epic Universe. Okay, I'm going to show you the outline in a minute on Google Maps, but this talks about the impervious surface ratio of being 0.90%. This is super important when it comes to how Universal have decided what's land and what's ponds and stuff like that. So essentially what it means is they're working on the assumption that they're going to build on their piece of land 90% of the surface with something that can't soak water in at all. So buildings, parking lot, pavement, any solid surfaces. But instead of trying to do it piecemeal, like tiny little bits here, tiny little bits there, they just work out the absolute maximum amount of area that they can build on and what's the absolute minimum amount of permeable surface they're allowed. And then they allocate that to the storage ponds. So they just work to their absolute maximum. So I'm going to show you on Google Maps what that looks like. Google Earth, I should say. Here's the project site as they consider it. It's 522 acres is on their worksheet. Now, as I said, they can build up to 90% of this land. So let's have a quick look what 52 acres of non-impervious surface looks like, i.e. ponds. So quite a big piece of area. But then when we look at our Google Earth image, you can see that these ponds are spread out throughout the whole site. And there's ponds going to be in places where you wouldn't necessarily think that they need to put one. So I'll go over that. There is one further pond that you'll see on a lot of these drawings. I'm just going to show you it here. This L-shaped pond, this is the FDOT pond, the Florida Department of Transport. For a long time I was wondering what on earth this pond was doing there. It was just sitting there. It wasn't part of the plot. It turns out that it's actually, this is Sand Lake Road running along the top here, east-west. It's actually the drainage pond for that. So if they get any crazy amounts of water, there's obviously an underground pipe. It drains straight into this L shape just here. So there's a couple of, let's get rid of this, hang on. There's a couple of main drainage basins that are in the area, or there's a few down here, which I'll get into later on the drawings. The two massive ones are the East Pavilion, this huge one here. It's got its funny little cutout bit there. Goes all the way down, and then you can kind of see the two other areas that I'm going to talk about in a moment in this little section here, but I'll come back to them later. And then we've also got the West Pavilion, which obviously covers back of house, it covers monsters, it covers weirdly half of Potter and the hotel. So that's got its own little area there, and all of that stuff will drain into this massive one here, which is Lake 4. So let's have another look at the document, see if there's anything else to talk about. Okay, this is important. The design criteria. The proposed stormwater management system must limit the post-development peak discharge rates into the Central Canal and wetland creation area to those established in the SLRC Conceptual Environmental Resource Permit for the 25-year, 24-hour design storm event. Essentially, if they get a 25-year storm, and I'll tell you now that a 25-year storm means that they're getting, in a 24-hour period, 8.6 inches of rain. So that's a lot of rain. Their design that they've built must slow down that water going into the Central Canal. So let me show you what we talk about when we talk about the Central Canal. So first of all, here's Shingle Creek. That's the main waterway where all the water drains to. And then if I just zoom out a little bit more, we can see this Central Canal. So all of these areas here are going to feed into this central canal and drain into this central canal, and this gets to here. So here's the basic concepts. So it rains on the theme park. The water drains on all the buildings, on the roofs, drains on all the pathways, goes into one of our retention ponds that we talked about. By virtue of all the heavy stuff sinking down to the bottom, the sediment, they've got like an overflow like you'd have in your sink at home. And when the water gets to a certain level, it'll overflow into this. And there'll be skimmers and traps on top, so they just get relatively clean water going in, and then that drains out into the drainage canal. So you're kind of cleaning the water, but the main thing what you are doing is slowing it down. So rather than the rain hitting the hard surface, running straight into the canal at high speed, just keeps things nice and slow. Okay, this table is pretty important because it shows the design normal water level, so it's 91 feet. So you're probably thinking, okay, there's not much increase between the design height of what it can take in terms of water and the regular water height. But obviously these lakes are pretty big, they're several acres, and we'll start seeing somewhere in these calculations a measurement of water volume of acres feet, which is 1 acre of land at 1 foot deep. So there's obviously considerable volumes of water there. And as I just discussed, so the required water volumes that they need is 23 acres feet, and they're providing in their design 25. Okay, so 1 acre feet is 1.2 million litres of water. That's quite a bit. You can see there's quite a bit there. 10A, the biggest one, has got capacity for 59 acres feet. So serious amounts of water there. This one for all those sand geeks out there. But here's your different areas with your different grades and types of sand and muck and dirt. This is the FEMA floodway. So if there was like a major flood, it would flood out of Shingle Creek and it would just creep into part of the Epic site, but it wouldn't actually affect any of this. So you can see, even though Universal own all this land up here, they're not going to build anything on there. And here's our drainage basins. We'll go into this in more detail. You can see the pipeway that takes the water to the canal. You can see these different areas. So let's have a quick zoom into one of these areas. So even though we've talked about how it's split into 2 major parts, we've got these little subsections that are going to drain into the various areas eventually. So this, it seems like this will drain into SM12A. This area will tend to drain into SM12, and then the larger area will drain into 10A. I'm going to discuss this further in a moment, but you can see these lakes are connected. So let's go back to our drainage explanation. One theory that I believe may be that they are slowing the water down through a series of different lakes, not just one. Okay, so we can see here on this big map, the pretty map, that these lakes are all connected. Could be that by having successive drains with those drainage overflow filters, they'll not only clean the water as they go, but they will significantly slow it down if there was some sort of storm. Here's the big mega map. We've seen this one before. It's Alicia's favourite. It's one of my favourites, to be honest. So we've got our different areas. We've talked about this one. We've talked about this one. Let's look at Lake 4 as an example. We can see all of that area drains into Lake 4. If we look at a cutaway of what the lake looks like, we can see that here. Let's zoom in. Here's our overflow system that I was talking about. So you've got a grate on top, got the skimmer, and then the water flows in and then drains out. And they've talked the elevation the bottom of the skimming level is 93. We'll look at the control level in a moment. But it's got to rise 1.5 feet before it goes over. The control water level is 91 feet. The 25-year storm is 95. The 10-year storm is 94. And the 100 is 95.62 feet. Most of the time, the water level is going to stay below, well below the top of the overflow. So we've got this permit that zooms in really close. A couple of things I want to show you. Here's our outward drain. There's two here. Here's the one we were just looking at. Want to see something interesting? Look here. Here's our ring road around the site. This is a tunnel. So what that means is the TMs and whoever's using the road can go about their daily business, and the people coming to the hotel through this way won't be affected. They never shall the two mix. Go back to the rest of it. Okay, so we've got these little ones here. So this one's got its own pond, Lake 7A. We don't currently know what they're doing with this land. However, that's about 12 acres of land there. So my guess would be that they could put a nice hotel on the corner. I certainly would. But we'll see. We're going to talk about these two plots of land where we've got hotels in a bit. But that's got its own little lake, its own little mini drainage basin there. And again, it's got its own little system with its own little overflow. This one here, again, we're not sure whether this will be hotel or whether this will be some sort of CityWalk 2.0. You can see here, there's another map and drainage plan that I'll have to try and find, that they're actually building a road on this little section to get across the drainage canal into this plot of land this way. That's got its own little lake, little drainage, the same as all the others. Here's our mega one, and we've talked about this, SM12, Lake 10A, SM12A, and that all drains through and then eventually comes out into the drainage canal. So as I said to you, let's look at this a bit more closely. They're all connected. Does that mean that one drains to the other, to the other, to the other? I'm not sure. I'd have to probably look at the water levels on each of them. Is one higher than the other, or are they all the same? Is it just a way of moving water around? I'm not too sure. If you know the answer, leave a comment. One thing I just wanted to show you all is what they're doing with the wetland area. Again, this is all area that they own. Talks about mass grading. So they own all this land, but in this document, we've got talking about vegetation and some of their plans for the wetland area. Okay, here's one of them, wetland creation area, deep water aquatic plants, shallow forest wetlands. So that transition from dry to water type of plants, and you can see a little cross section that they've shown an example of what they want to do with that area. And then there's another one here, a similar kind of thing. So they've got a plan for everything. They've literally got a plan for everything that they want to do. Okay, so this is the final plan that I wanted to show everyone. Lots of different ponds around here. Some of these have been shown up in bioreconstructs photographs. And again, what I was talking about earlier, this little corner of land here, they're going to build a road that comes from Destination Parkway. They're going to build a little roundabout. Universal don't own this land, but obviously it's a mutually beneficial arrangement where these guys give up some of their land. Universal builds a road and a roundabout intersection. They get to then have access to their site, and the businesses that that pop up here have got free access into their lots. So it works out well for everybody. And then if we look at this is my most exciting, interesting part. We can see that these 2 plots of land that we know have been allocated for hotels have their own little plots of water retention. But here's the thing, these 2 plots of water here go here. This is the road that you're going to go up into. This is the start of Kirkman and then into Resort Road. Are we going to get hotels that are symmetrical, and are they going to go here? Because we know that there's going to be a pond here and here. We know there's going to be a pond here. So that means the hotel has to somehow fit into this. So I'll leave that to your imagination. What do you think is going to go there?